Hi, in this video I will show you how to draw three types of trees. One of them is line and wash, another one is watercolor but in an expressive way, and number three is a little bit of realistic type watercolor. Let's dive into that. The first one is line and wash. In this practice I will just quickly draw some outline of the tree, nothing much in detail because the line work I will do very in the end. So the first thing I will do the initial wash. I will, with my natural hairbrush, I will drop some yellow ochre and cadmium red to make some warmth color on the page. I'll simply just fill up with the warm color on the page, and then down at the bottom I'll put some cool color like cobalt blue. My tree will be a bit of monochromatic, so I wouldn't worry about what color I'm putting in as long as that's warm color, and down at the bottom this just a little bit of cool color. So when that's dry, I will drop some fresh water randomly, and then with my synthetic hairbrush I will drop some neutral tint color on there and let the color take its own path. And next stage would be pretty easy. Just draw the tree trunk and branches as you want to. Use your imagination and just draw randomly. Don't try to be too specific about branches and trees. Just draw randomly and it will look good. Trust me. I use some fingernails to draw some grasses and stuffs just down at the bottom. And use a liner brush to draw the branches with some dry strokes. I drop some water there so that I can use that water to extend my pigments randomly here and there. I will drop some more water so that it creates some randomness. As I said, this will be very expressionistic way of drawing in monochromatic. I'll use brush pen to define some of the branches on the top, and some of them I will just leave them as they are, like smudges. I'll use the pen as well. Use some random marks, and I'll just go crazy about these ones, the grasses and all of the stuff. And that's pretty much all. So this is a monochromatic tree in an expressive way drawn in the pen and wash. As you can see, I just use one color basically and use pen to define the characteristics of the tree. Now the next one. This one, as you can see, I just drew a tree with a pencil. And now what I'll do, I will just do my initial wash. I will use some cobalt blue for the sky or the background. The whole idea is to make this paper wet, but with some colors. I'll drop some yellow ochre and just randomly. The idea of this tree is I will drop some random colors as foliage, and then I will use the water and dry brush stroke, use the randomness of the water to make this tree an expressive one. Down at the bottom you can see I just used some lemon yellow with cobalt blue mixing up, create some bright green, and I have used burnt sienna to do some earth color, and that's pretty much all. Just do a little bit of splatter with the colors. And now with these, again in the same way, I will use that natural hair brush and I will use some fresh water to wet my page where the foliage will go there. And I also drop some water to pre-wet these pages. See how they react with water. I dropped cobalt turquoise, cobalt blue, and some quinacridone gold. You can drop any sort of pigment you want. It's just only depending on your imagination. See how the wet and wet technique happens, how the pigments merge into another one. You can do some splatters, you can do any sort of technique you want to do. Now with some darker value, not necessarily the one I'm using, you can use any darker value in there to draw the tree. I used neutral tint, and I'm just using the branches and stems and all of the stuff. I'm trying to using wet and wet advantage of these and letting the paints merge into one another. So when they're dry, as you can see, that just became a lighter. Then you can do your second stage of the painting. What I'm doing, I'm just redefining the branches of the trees with neutral tint, just with the thick paint. As this is an expressionistic style, so not necessarily it has to be look like actually how we usually draw the trees. You can just use your imaginations. Now what I'm doing, I have used some neutral tint with cobalt turquoise, and then I just doing some dry brush technique to define some of them, some of the shadows, and then doing some splatters and whatever comes up on my mind, just using my expressions, brush expressions of that one. So when you do these ones, so one thing to remember, you have to, after you dropping the water, you have to use your synthetic brush to define those paint where they need to be go. Let's a little bit just give them a guidelines. And I use some lavender colors to do some highlights, and just down in the bottom I'm just doing some textures, some ground stuff, some dry brush technique. And this is my tree. So basically what I have shown here, using wet and wet technique and dropping some colors and give it a shape. That's all. Not necessarily you'll have to do that in the same way. You can use different techniques or different textures using salt, water, anything you want. Now come to the next one. So here I drew the tree with the pencil sketch, and now I'm dropping some colors as initial wash. Basically warm color on the background. I'm just keeping my background as really background, like just dropping some colors and that's all. And down at the bottom as well warm. So everything I've kept it warm, and I'm using some cobalt blue with lavender and making it dry. So when it's dry, I will do my second stage. So this is the lavender color probably I'll be using. I'm using lavender colors basically. Just trying to mixing up lavender with a little bit of red, and sometimes just pure lavender. I'm just doing some dark part of my trays with lavender mixing with blue and red, and lighter part of my trays with just simple lavender. I'm just calculating where the lights will come up and simply just doing my brush strokes of that one. Instead of doing longer brush stroke, I'm using the smaller brush stroke. I'm using some burnt sienna down at the bottom just to show the light hitting on those sides. And this side, that light will come from the right hand side, so I'm just using burnt sienna in there. I'm trying not to be regular with my brush stroke. I'm just trying to be a little bit of random, and sometimes I'm putting some darker value of lavender. Just because the trees has got different texture in it, like tree barks and all of this stuff. So I try to create those sort of texture with my dry brush, wet brush and everything. And using some darker values in the other side where the light will not hit, I think. This is a typical Australian gum tree. So I'm trying to do the texture of the gum tree like that. And as because the tree has got different textures, so I'm trying to do my brush strokes shorter. Trying to do some calculative brush stroke, and at the moment I'm doing some wet and wet, but later on when it will be a little bit drier, then I will use some dry brush stroke to do the texture of the tree. Just doing some random foliage stuff at one end. And this is a very early morning scene, so some of the leaves or foliage will be in golden in color, so I'm just keeping that in my mind. The brush I'm using at the moment is a very natural hair brush, but it's a very old brush, that's why I use that to do the foliage, and sometimes I use my fingertips to do different types of texture on the foliage and the tree trunk. Just doing some random foliage marking there. I'm using some dry brush technique now, using some dry lavender and just rubbing onto the existing one, and to make sure the previous layer is dried up. So now doing some shadow parts or some tree barks with some dry paint on it. Just doing some random marks in there. And doing some background trees, and in the foreground some more burnt siennas, more burnt umber mixed, just random, doesn't matter. Just trying to using different textures, different colors, wet and wet. Just my whole idea is to being some randomness onto the foreground. Do not try to do each grass or everything one by one. So just leave it to the watercolor, leave it to the water. And now with the synthetic hair brush, I'm defining layer by layer. So I need to make sure the previous layer is dry. Then on the top of that, I'm defining more texture in it. Sometimes a little bit of lighter color, wet color, and sometimes more darker values. My detailing part has been started, I should rather say. So this is the very last part, very top layer. So you can do, even if you want to do some pen work, you can do that one. But darkest colors and everything I need to do on this stage. Some random brush here and there. See, the whole idea of showing this one to you, to doing some sort of realistic tree, you need to do it layer by layer. So you need to make sure the previous layer is dry and then do the next layer work on there. But you will have to have a plan inside you, like where your dark value will go, where the light's coming from, and where's your light reflecting. And also in your whole painting needs to work out, like your composition needs to be correct. See, I'm using dry brush technique in there so that it looks from the far, it looks like the tree barks and a real sort of realistic sort of way. As I don't have reference at the moment, so I'm just trying to use my imagination how it may look like. I hope to do one in plein air one day in front of actual gum tree. I'll show you how to do that one. I'm doing some darker values where the shadows are coming for the leaves, so that it's just create some 3D effects on it. And some of them I'm just leaving completely gestural. One thing, I don't know if you have noticed, that I did not put any sort of concentration or any sort of interest on the background. I left as it is. Background needs to be like background, and as you can see, the more darker and more prominent your foreground will be and your subject will be, and your background, lighter background, create an atmospheric effect on that one. And that's pretty much all, my friend. So just taking my tape off, and this is the final painting, as you can see, and I hope you liked it. If you like it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe my channel, and I will see you in my next video. Thanks for watching.